Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us for this week's Gems. Today we've got our very own Dustin Hara speaking today on the topic of expansive generosity. And this is the heroic storytelling tradition. Dustin is a new member of our community this year, but he has proven to be such a valuable member of our community. And I have the pleasure of working with him on the marketing team. Very talented and multifaceted human. And so without further ado, I will hand it over to Dustin.
Thanks, Olivia. So wonderful to be here with all of you folks. And I love that statement on the back of the almanac. I will say, absolutely, if you haven't gotten your 2024 almanac yet, make sure that you get a copy. And I was blessed to be able to look through and to proofread that almanac. And every year's one is amazing, but this coming year's one to me is extra special. It's really, really beautiful jewels and gems and nuggets of wisdom in there. So this week's topic was, as Olivia mentioned, on expansive generosity. And there's a really wonderful film called It's a Wonderful Life. And I heard about this film and have never watched it previously. I know everyone was shocked. Renee was very shocked when we were talking about it, and I hadn't seen the film. And so part of my homework was I had to watch a good movie, do my hard work and watch the film. And I was just really, really blessed. I enjoyed it so much, and it reminded me of quite a few different things. And so I kind of want to go over recap that film and then open the dialogue for some conversation on what expansive generosity looks like to each of you. And, see how this conversation progresses. So Olivia, I think you have a clip, just a little bit of context for those of you who have watched the film. This particular clip is from the scene where there's a run on the bank, and let's just take a look at it, and then we can get into it. So Olivia, you want to play?
Hello, everybody. Miss Thompson, how are you? Arlene, what's the matter here? Can't you get in? What is this, Uncle Billy? A holiday?
George.
Come on in, everybody. That's right. Let's come on in. Come on, Jimmy. Now, look, why don't you all sit down? Here, there are a lot of seats over there. Just make yourself at home.
George, can I see a minute?
Why did you call me?
I just did, but they said you left. This is a pickle, George. This is a pickle.
All right, now, what happened? How did it start?
Well, how does a thing like this ever start? All I know is the bank called our loan.
When?
About an hour ago, I handed over all our cash.
All of it?
Every cent of it, and still was less than we owed them.
Holy mackerel.
And then I got scared, George, and closed the doors.
The whole town's gone crazy.
Yeah, hello? George, it's Potter.
Hello?
George, there is a rumor around town that you've closed your doors. Is that true? Oh, well, I'm very glad to hear that. George, are you all right? Do you need any police?
Police? What for?
Well, mobs get pretty ugly sometimes, you know. George, I am going all out to help in this crisis. I have just guaranteed the bank sufficient funds to meet their needs. They will close up for a week and then reopen.
Just took over the bank.
I may lose a fortune, but I am willing to guarantee your people, too. Just tell them to bring their shares over here, and I will pay 50 cents on the dollar.
Boy, you never miss a trick, do you, Potter? Well, you're gonna miss this one.
If you close your doors before 6 p.m., you will never reopen.
George, was it a nice wedding? Gosh, I wanted to be there.
Yeah. You can take this one off now. Now, just remember that this thing isn't as black as it appeared. I have some news for you, folks. I was just talking to old man Potter, and he's guaranteed cash payments to the bank. The bank's going to reopen next week.
But, George, I got my money here.
Did he guarantee this place?
Well, no, Charlie, I didn't even ask him. We don't need Potter over here.
And I'll take mine now.
No, but you're thinking of this place all wrong, as if I had the money back in a safe. The money's not here. Well, your money's in Joe's house. That's right next to yours. And in the Kennedy house, and Mrs. Maitland's house, and 100 others. You're lending them the money to build, and then they're going to pay it back to you as best they can. Now, what are you going to do, foreclose on them?
I got $242 in here, and $242 isn't going to break anybody.
Okay, Tom. All right. Here you are. You sign this. You get your money in 60 days.
For 60 days?
Well, now, that's what you agreed to when you bought your shares,
Tom, did you get your money?
No.
Well, I did. Old man Potter will pay 50 cents on the dollar for every share you got.
50 cents on the dollar?
Yes, cash.
Well, what do you say?
No, Tom, you have to stick to your original agreement. Now, give us 60 days on this
Okay, Randall.
Are you going to Potter's?
Better to get half than nothing.
That's right.
Tom! Randall, wait. Now, wait. Now, listen. Now, listen to me. I beg of you not to do this thing. If Potter gets a hold of this building and alone, there'll never be another decent house built in this town. He's already got charge of the bank, he's got the bus line, he got the department stores, and now he's after us. Why? Well, it's very simple. Because we're cutting in on his business, that's why. And because he wants to keep you living in his slums and paying the kind of rent he decides. Joe, you had one of those Potter houses, didn't you? Well, have you forgotten? Have you forgotten what he charged you for that broken-down shack? Here, Ed, you remember last year when things weren't going so well and you couldn't make your payments? Well, you didn't lose your house, did you? You think Potter would have let you keep it? Can't you understand what's happening here? Don't you see what's happening? Potter isn't selling, Potter's buying. And why? Because we're panicky and he's not, that's why. He's picking up some bargain. Now, we can get through this thing all right. We've got to stick together, though. We've got to have faith in each other.
But my husband hasn't worked in over a year, and I need money.
How am I going to live until the bank opens?
I got doctor bills to pay. I need cash.
I can't keep my kids on faith. I've got to have...
How much do you need?
Hey! I got $2,000. Here's $2,000. This will tide us over to the bank reopens. All right, Tom, how much do you need?
$242.
No, Tom, just enough to tide you over until the bank reopens.
I'll take $242.
There you are.
That'll close my account.
Your account's still here. That's a loan. Okay. All right, Ed.
Well, I got $300 here, George.
All right, now, Ed, what'll it take until the bank opens? What do you need?
Well, I suppose $20?
$20. Now you're talking. Thanks, Ed. That's fine. All right, now, Miss Thompson, how much do you want?
But it's your own money,
Now,
George.
never mind about that. How much do you want now?
I can get along with 20, all right.
$20, fine.
And I'll sign
There
the
you are.
paper.
You don't have to sign anything. I know you pay when you can. That's okay. All right, Miss Davis.
Could I have $17.50?
Bless your heart. Of course you can have it. You got 50 cents. There we go. 7.
We're gonna make it, George.
6.
He'll never close us up today.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bingo! We made it. Close the door, Eustace. We made it. Look, we're still in business. We still got $2 left. Well, look, let's have some of that. Let's celebrate. Get some glasses, Tilly. Well, a couple of financial wizards.
Those Rockefellers.
Look, get a tray for these 2 great big important simoleons here.
We'll save them for seed.
Yeah, A toast. A toast to Mama Dollar and to Papa Dollar. And if you want to keep this old building and loan in business, you better have a family real quick.
I wish they were rabbits.
I wish there were, too. Okay, let's put them in the safe and see what happens.
Folks, wedding cigars.
Oh, wedding. Holy mackerel, I'm married. Where's Mary? Mary!
Hi, Renee.
Aloha, aloha. Isn't that a wonderful scene? So we are having a big event here at Stella Moving Center today, our Merry and Bright celebration. And I thank you for your patience in waiting for me to show up from some of the things I was doing getting ready for that celebration. How far are you in explaining the story and giving your little talk, Dustin?
We just started with the clip. We opened up with the clip.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you for coming to Gems from the Wisdom Traditions today. And this conversation circle is on the notion of expansive generosity. We just watched how George in the film It's a Wonderful Life spent his entire newlywed money that was supposed to be for their honeymoon to save the bank and loan of his little community. And this is from what I would call the heroic storytelling tradition, which is a tradition that I think pervades every culture around the world, especially in regard to, and I've learned this so well from one of our participants today, Dr. James Tepfer, Jim, who talks about how important it is for our children and really for the child in each of us to hear stories of heroes. It just does something for the moral imagination, and it encourages us each to find the hero in ourselves. And so I'm so fortunate that one of my local heroes, Dustin Hara, is here to give us a little conversation about this wonderful film, and the tradition is something that we can talk about together. So, Dustin?
Thanks, Renee. I was saying earlier, before we started watching this clip, that I had never seen the movie. And so it was a pleasure watching the film and getting, the complete storyline. And for those of you who don't know, from this bank run, he then goes on to build and develop a whole community and making housing available to all of the customers and clients, and helping them get reasonable funding on their homes, and very focused on community service and helping people. And as he's starting a family, they end up having kids. He got married to the beautiful wife. There are friends from his childhood that he sees as the years go by who have gotten into certain business ventures, and some of these business ventures, the investment opportunity was offered to him, and he didn't take those because he decided to keep his focus on helping his community. And they end up becoming successful and wealthy, and so they'll come and visit in their nice cars, and they're off traveling, and while him and his wife are still building homes, helping the community. And time goes on, and he starts to look at and question the progress of his life, and what all this work that I've done to help people, everything that I've given and poured out for others, why is my life not where, perhaps in a certain sense, where other friends that he has grown up with from his childhood. He started looking at financial differences, at travel differences, at business differences, and all these different parameters. And the narrative of the film starts to shift towards him focusing so much on what he doesn't have and what he hasn't accomplished, that he forgets to look at what he does have and all the people in whose lives he's impacted, the beautiful family, the children that he's been blessed with, and his amazing, loving, caring, supportive wife. And it gets to a point in the end where he's almost ready to take his life. And there's sort of a spiritual intervention, or if you will, a character enters, we can call it an angelic character or a spirit character, to come and show him what his life would be if he had not been born. He makes a wish and says, well, I wish I just had never been born. I never existed. And so, the angel spirit guide tells him, okay, let's see what that would look like, and takes him through the other, meeting his wife, seeing people from work, seeing people that he's helped with their homes, and they don't recognize him. And these people are now in a completely different place, a completely different state, because he had not been born. He had not been there to have helped them at some point in his life. And so it reaches a point at the very end where his business was about to go under. He was going to be put in jail. It was the end of the world in his mind. And the community that he had helped through all these years had built these friendships of helping people with their homes, with financing, all came together basically, and just poured in the financial blessings, the financial money that he needed, basically to save his business and to make things right, so that he'd be able to move forward. And it was a really, beautiful, heartwarming end to see the community come together and just pour back into this man everything that he had poured into them, when he thought he hadn't really helped anyone and he hadn't really impacted anyone in his lifetime. He had wished that there was no purpose, no point to him even have existed. And it was really, really interesting. I see I have a good friend that joined us, Jeff Leon. Jeff, so good to see you. And we have David there and Kai there as well. Nice to have you guys. And it was really interesting. I got a few different perspectives, different thought processes from this film and this focus on expansive generosity. And I touched a little bit on this when we were opening, that gratitude and generosity to me really go hand in hand. They are so deeply intertwined. When we have gratitude for what we have, for who we are, for where we are, for what we've been given, it really allows us to live in a place of abundance, to live in a place of generosity, to live in a place of blessing. And it's an interesting thing when we think about that. There are so many principles in this universe that are very opposite from, there we call it the carnal mind of man, or the selfish way of thinking, the selfless way of thinking, in many cases are very opposite in its approach. And you see this through many cultures. Maybe it's yin and yang, it's day and night, it's light and dark. There's always this polarity that brings balance and alignment to all things in this world, in this life. And so the course of action, and I love this run on the bank scene, because most people, right, if from a very automated sort of first level shallow response, your business is going under, the crowds are caving in, you have no money. Most people, the first response would not be to give of whatever you have left in your pocket to help these people, right? Okay, I need time, I need to figure things out. You guys just need to deal with it. And there's a very worldly, carnal way, which is that selfish way. But the selfless way understands that this universe, one of the principles, everything works on this principle of seed time and harvest. And I've talked about this, me and Renee have talked about this before in various conversations, but all of creation in every aspect is a reflection of itself. And the smallest thing to even the biggest thing, to our daily cycles, monthly cycles, to the annual, the seasons, to a seed becoming a seedling, sprouting and growing, branching leaves, budding, flowering, harvest, and then back to the ground again, to a boy and a girl growing, becoming adults, meeting, marrying, starting a family, and producing once again a baby again, growing. And so all of creation follows this rhythm, this cycle, which in many ways is such a great expression of expansive generosity. This act of faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things I cannot yet see. There's a amazing sort of principle, and I remember this, just, quick little story. I remember being in a financial, very difficult season of my life when I had worked really, really hard on a business and put everything into this business. And basically it failed. And this was many, many years ago when I first got into the world of being an entrepreneur and creating, bringing amazing products and a service or an idea to help people. And I put everything into this business, all of my money, all of my time, and it failed for its own reasons. And after I came out of that season, I didn't know what to do. I felt like very much so how the end of It's a Wonderful Life, he had done all of this work to help all these people. And I just was in such a place of, I don't have anything and I've lost everything and there's no purpose to my life. I did all of this for nothing. And I remember that I listened to a message, and that actually my father had preached at the time. My father is a minister, amazing Pentecostal preacher. He can blow your hats off in church. But there was this, and many of the messages, when you grew up in it, some of it is just like, waves crashing on you, and you just kind of cut through the water, if you will. But there were certain things that he would say from time to time that would stick to me. And one of the concepts was, wherever your need is where your seed is. And so, like, sow into the field where you want to see growth. And it's very simple concept if you think about it, but many times we don't sow into the area of our need, where into that field. And so a good example he gave was, if you are struggling financially, find a way to bless people financially. If you are struggling because you feel like you're so busy and you don't have time, find a way to sow and give your time to other people. If you feel like you need to learn, and you want to learn and grow your mindset, find a way to bless and share what wisdom you do have into someone else, and share what knowledge you do have. And I thought, wow, what a crazy concept. It almost didn't make sense to me. How could I give something that I needed if I didn't have enough of it? But if you look at it from the selective point of all of nature, an amazing oak tree, and a good example is the mustard tree too, in the plant garden varieties. A mustard tree grows into this beautiful big tree, but it starts from one of the tiniest seeds, a mustard seed, right? A beautiful big tree grows just from a simple little acorn. And if we look at things in this way, it's almost beyond our comprehension on how something so small can become something so impactful and something so grand and beautiful. And so I'd like us to think about, what are some examples, perhaps in our own life, where we have been in a season of need, and we were able to step out of that and grow out of that and elevate our situation by practicing expansive generosity. And what are some examples of what that looks like to you, I think personally. And it's such a beautiful thing, especially in the holidays. There's this amazing exchange of gifts, of time, of food, of song and dance, of being with our family, being with our loved ones. I will honestly say, I have been so blessed in my life. I need nothing. I desire, there's no gift that that I would be given that I would need. And that there is such an indescribable joy with being able to bless others. And the joy of sowing a seed into someone else and being able to just give a little bit of yourself, a little bit of my heart, a little bit of my love, a little bit of my time, a little bit of my song, a little bit of my creativity, whatever that is. Maybe it's here, maybe I'm a good cook. Here's a little bit of some good food for you. Maybe I'm great at art. Here's a little piece of art that I thought would bless you. And it's these kind acts of expansive generosity that end up becoming the most impactful for people. And we remember these moments. And for us, in many cases, perhaps it wasn't as significant as we thought in being the extender or the expresser of generosity. But for someone, it could have been the thing that completely changed and shifted their paradigm and changed their mindset, touched their heart, and blessed them. And it's even down to the littlest things. When you go to the bank, and it's a simple transaction. I'm going to the bank, I'm going to go maybe deposit a check, smiling at the bank teller, telling her, wow, I absolutely love those earrings on you. How's your family? It's so good to see you. I just love every time I come here seeing your smile. When you're at the grocery store, checking out, happy holidays. Thank you so much for your amazing customer service. Thanks so much for taking care of all these people during this crazy, hectic holiday times. When you see a friend, embracing and hugging your friend and really being present in that moment, to give of your energy and appreciation and give a smile and look someone in the eye. It's these little acts that we consistently do, and as we interact with people, that I believe are all great forms of generosity.
Thank you so much, Dustin. I really want to thank you for going from the little, as small as a mustard seed, to something very expansive and looking at this concept really from a universal level, talking about how everything in the universe mirrors itself from the smallest to the grandest. And I think it's important for us to have that larger philosophical perspective, and then look at it within the world of so how do we instantiate that principle? Since I have learned myself on this idea of the potency of hero stories, I wonder if I could call on Jim Tepfer first to see if he has a comment or question he'd like to offer.
Well, I have to say, I start out with a question about generosity and what happens when someone lacks generosity. They have to be honest that they lack generosity. So then the question becomes, how then do you, quote, acquire generosity? And the more I'm sorry, what is your first name again? I couldn't hear it. The speaker?
Dustin.
What's that?
Dustin.
Oh, Dustin. Okay, Dustin. So, but the more I listened to you, the more you gave answers to every question I had. And I was taught at the end, I often get called on to make talks on theosophical topics, but I genuinely don't think I could do any different than if I were to just to take your talk and give it. It's just so exquisitely interesting and right on in my understanding, because when I had the question, okay, suppose someone recognizes they just don't have generosity very much. They have very little of it. So first of all, you have to be honest. And that was initial point. And then when you started saying, well, if you start noticing generosity, but also giving what you do have, it's this interesting thing about we human beings. Our potential is so much vaster than whatever we express, that the starting from somewhere, anywhere, is a salute to that and us and others, which is really there. And I thought your connection of gratitude being necessary for almost any quality, I thought that was a marvelous point. If you have gratitude, you for sure can develop all the other virtues. And I think that was just a wonderful point. And then you're ending with taking a little bit and how it can be, fructified, fertilized by a genuine desire to share it. I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was really, really wonderful. So I'm very grateful I was able to make the meeting. And I certainly enjoyed your presentation. I think it was marvelous. So thank you very much, Dustin.
Thanks so much, James.
Yes, my pleasure. Believe me, my pleasure.
Who else? This is such a season of giving. I know it's something on our mind, and we might be worried that we haven't had a chance to go out and do our Christmas shopping. And I think from our conversation so far, there are probably a lot more important ways to share expansive generosity. Has anybody else seen the movie? Just a show of hands?
Several times.
Yeah.
And we're going to be watching it again soon. And then use the points from Dustin to help others who should share with them what I learned from Dustin. But it's interesting. You mentioned the yin yang, Dustin. If you look at Lao Tzu, I was just happened to be reading a quote, serendipity, the Dalai Lama calls this. I was reading a quote and you're saying points on it. But he was talking about knowledge is additive, but wisdom involves subtraction. And what does he mean by that? Well, you have to recognize where that excess has to be sloughed off, the selfishness has to be sloughed off to release the innate wisdom and creativity and generosity that one has. That's why I was wondering about the question of, well, what do you do if you recognize honestly you have very little? What Lao Tzu seems to be saying is, if nothing else, if you're honest about that, then start looking for generosity in others. And when that happens, there's a kind of cross-fertilization, kind of activation of the germ of generosity in ourselves. And the more we recognize it, strangely enough, the more it grows in us. And so it becomes a reciprocal relationship. There's a kind of good contagion where, as it spreads, it grows and it affects the whole community. So that's a really lovely, lovely notion.
Yeah. And so what about Dustin's question of times when you've been able to perhaps sow just the seed of generosity, or perhaps even more once you've had it, shown toward you, and what kind of difference it might have made in your life? Elizabeth, I seem to remember some story you've already told here at GEMS in the past. I just can't quite grab onto it.
Which one?
No, about somebody being very generous to you.
Well, I'm thinking a lot about my Samoan adopted family here, my Hanai family, because they teach their children from so little about what they can give. And I think about the Sarvodaya movement in Sri Lanka, where the children are taught to meditate on two things when they're little. Maybe it's that one. And that is inner peace and generosity. And, if you just imagine a world where everyone's peaceful and focused on what do I have to give. So this morning, I suddenly realized that my angel editor, who was in the process of a lot of work and formatting my last book, was going to have it done in time so that I could give it away for Christmas. And that makes me very, very happy because it's my legacy and I can't wait to give it to everybody I know. And then they can take it or leave it. But I'm getting it put into a digital format so that it can be read on any kind of a reader. And then an angel publisher popped up who would put it into paperback as needed, if anybody actually wanted hard copy. But my whole intent was to give this away, and it makes me super happy at Christmas time that I have a gift to give.
And what a special gift.
Oh, and of course, there have been many times in my life when I was down to an empty wallet, completely empty. And the way I was always looked at it, Dustin, was that the trick was, first of all, never to be anxious about it, every time anxiety looked like it was coming in, to focus instead on what you had. And I actually thought about, how to be a bag lady in the street and how to cook pigeons in the park if you had to, plugging a hot plate into the Christmas tree light outlets or whatever. And I used to have fun sort of thinking up ways to survive when you were out of everything. And it always worked if I didn't lose the faith that the universe was essentially good and I was meant to survive. And then the miracles are all in that book that I want to give away. And you can all have copies of it before Christmas, as far as I know.
I think one of the things I appreciated about your talk also, Dustin, was the concept of selflessness. It's even beyond selfishness. I mean, unselfishness. Selflessness, there's not even a self there to be unselfish. And so that to me points to something that from the Buddhist tradition might be called the Bodhisattva path of lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, dedicating oneself to the uplift of the whole of creation, no matter how much suffering one might be subjected to in the course of all those lifetimes of being of service over and over again. That still, it's the stance of pure giving that allows, maybe we could call it the life force energy of the universe to just flow through one over and over and over again. So everyone is benefited. And this is something I've heard Bob Buss refer to on a number of occasions during our different meetings here at Gems from the Wisdom Traditions. Bob, did you want to make a comment?
What I found very interesting is that this movie shows the Bodhisattva path. I mean, he is so connected to everyone, the sense of interbeing. And then, just as with everybody's life, dukkha happens. And suddenly, $25,000 disappears. And if you watch the movie, you know how it disappears. But the point is, he could always have thrown his Uncle Billy under the bus, but he doesn't. He says, okay, it's my responsibility. And suddenly that interbeing dissolves. And he really thinks, I'm responsible. This has happened to me. There's no one else in the world. Everyone else is against me. And then suddenly the teacher is doing things to his daughter, Zuzu, and she's, sick because she didn't have a coat and all this stuff. Suddenly he's lost his perspective and he's at the point of wanting to commit suicide. And he's lost that whole bodhisattva path that was his entire life. And that to me is kind of, that's the critical thing, is that he has to get it back again. He has to suddenly take that dukkha, whether it's, wow, my spouse has died, my child has died, I've got cancer. I mean, all dukkha happens, things happen. $25,000 disappears and it's your responsibility and you're going to go to jail. Those things happen, and then you have to get back on the bodhisattva horse and figure it out again. And that's what this movie was just, to me, is so beautifully showed. And I'm reminded of a story from the Mahayana tradition. Vimalakirti was a great sage, a lay practitioner, known as the wisest person among all the sort of bodhisattvas practicing. And at one point, the Buddha said, go to Vimalakirti because he's sick. And so 80,000 bodhisattva comes into his 10 by 10 foot house. They all fit nice and sit around him. And they said, as an enlightened being, how can you be sick? And Vimalakirti says, I am sick because the world is sick. If the world gets better, I'll get better. And I think that's what Dustin was talking about, is how do we help the world get better in whatever ways we can do. So that's the flip side of the dukkha of losing your faith. But that's what I came across with the movie, which is so profound, and in Dustin's wonderful talk about it.
Seems like part of that bodhisattvic path is to be in a human body and a human personality. If that aspect of the bodhisattva path means that we could
also connected, that being in a human body means that you are also intimately connected with all other beings. All sentient and even unsentient beings they're part of you. And if you lose that, you lose everything. And of course, having that ego, we can always lose it. I mean, it's amazing how, if you look at bodhisattvas, there are many stories of some of them, losing it for a while and then having to come back to it.
And what a sacrifice that is, to have to go through the possibility of, or to at least enact that losing it, and the suffering that it would entail at one level of one's being, versus just kind of floating around angelically. Jim, what were your thoughts? I'm sorry, I might have interrupted you.
No, you didn't at all. No, I interrupted you. No, I'm just thinking it's such an important point to realize, though, from my understanding of the Buddhism, is when we have to be careful. Even the Dalai Lama warns about this, not to slip into the language of nihilism, because to say that selflessness takes you beyond selfish and unselfish is true. But to realize what is happening is, by becoming increasingly unselfish, the afflictions and the parameters of the personality begin to change and become more inclusive, such to release a pure primordial consciousness that is there, and that is then purified by the virtues, such that you're able to identify increasingly with the suffering of others. And interestingly enough, the paradox is it releases in you such an incredible joy in helping relieve the suffering of the world, that you don't have a sense of being a separate personality in the moment in which you're experiencing that. And then that builds in time over lifetimes. But I was just thinking too, I watch sports, and one of the things I see, I mean, limited as it is, but one of the things you see is a very interesting phenomenon. athletes become very selfish, very self-centered, particularly when they're over-promoted, when they're young and they're inexperienced. They don't know what it means to really be in the world and have responsibilities, and what happens to you get intoxicated with recognition and celebration before you even hardly done anything. But anyway, but it's interesting. Even the ones who are very much self-promoting, when they're suddenly asked, like on Mother's Day, about their mother, there's a total change in tone. Their voice changes. They're suddenly become very much people who are bowing before their mother, and they just speak with reverence. Or you ask them about your coach. What coach really helped you the most in life? The best ones will say, oh, it's so-and-so, and then I was so-and-so, and their tone changes. Their tone of voice changes because suddenly something in them that's reverential, that's grateful, is suddenly awakened, and they have an opportunity to express it. And one of the finest things I ever heard about race harmony was by a Black American who was a sports announcer. And the way he talked about Martin Luther King was one of the best I've ever heard, even by an academic, on Martin Luther King, because he saw the heartbeat, the pulse of Martin Luther King, which was in the unity and the brotherhood of man. And you have to get beyond just the racial issue to see it as a human issue. It's a racial issue, but it's more than that. It's a human issue about justice. When you have that, you have concord. And therefore, he said, I'm as concerned about the indigent white as I can be about the indigent Black. They're included in my embrace. And so it's just this notion that the circumference of the self, as the mind becomes purified, intelligence and consciousness come together. And then you have an incredible thing of wisdom and method. How you treat people matters all the time.
Well, I'm seeing how close we are to the end of our hour, so I wanted to propose this. I'd like Dustin to look at our last quote for the week in our Still a Moving Center Almanac, and I'll have him read it and maybe give just a brief thought on that. After that, I'm going to tell you about the next 3 weeks of gems. And finally, I'll ask for someone to give a vote of thanks to Dustin before we say goodbye. So, Dustin, could you read our last quote? It was actually hanging on the wall. I saw in that little video clip that we watched. This quote was hanging on the wall there of the bank or the home and loan office.
So it says, you can only take with you that which you have given away. You can only take with you that which you have given away. I think that is true in its most simple and pure and rudimentary form. We cannot take, and it's interesting, you look at many cultures that are older civilizations, and they would bury with them all of their belongings and different things and material goods. And the reality is the greatest treasures that we will take with us are the moments of impact, the moments of care, the moments of love, of generosity, are the memories that we will have created, and the influence, perhaps, if we're lucky, that we will have had to certain people in certain places in and through our life. These are the legacies, and I think the legacies that we will have been able to create on our time, our limited time here, become the most eternal treasures that we will take with us when our time in this dimension, in this form, on this earth comes to an end. And so I encourage and I challenge all of us as we finish this year and as we come to a time of great giving and receiving and gratitude and start a new year, a new season. I challenge each of us, I challenge myself to allow ourselves to be a little more pliable, a little more fluid, and expand in our generosity and how we express our generosity. And even if that's expressing it in the smallest of ways, I challenge and encourage you to do so, because it can have a rippling effect that can grow into something really spectacular and incredible and impactful in someone's life.
Yes,
Thank you.
indeed.
Wonderful.
Thank
Wonderful.
you. So let me, while we're just before someone gives a vote of thanks to Dustin, let me mention next week, for the very first time, we're closing the doors of Still and Moving Center for 4 days. We'll celebrate winter solstice on the night of Thursday, the 21st, which with something called Silent Night. There's going to be exquisitely beautiful music that I've already had a chance to hear portions of. And Dustin is a beautiful keyboardist and singer. So he's going to be one of the people there. It goes from 8:30 to 9:30 Hawaii time. Then we'll be closed for the 23rd. Let's see, the 22nd, the 23rd, and then 24th and the 25th. And so we'll just give everybody really a time of quiet, of peace over this beautiful holiday season, right there at the changing of the seasons. So next week we will have no GEMS session. The theme for next week in our Still and Moving Center Almanac, the 2024 edition of which is now available. The theme is opening doors. And I want to encourage you to maybe think about if we had had a session, we would have focused on Anwar Sadat, the president of Egypt, who really did an amazing job in terms of promoting peace in the Middle East, which seems especially relevant to us right now. And he did that at great personal risk. So that's what we would be talking about. You might want to give some consideration to that. The following week, we are going to be wrapping up 2023 and looking forward into 2024. So I guess I'm only telling you about 2 weeks. So on Saturday, December 30th, the topic will be irreversibility, eyes to the stars. Irreversibility, eyes to the stars. And we'll look backwards at this last year and we'll look forward to the year ahead. So I'll look forward to seeing you all on that day if you're able to make it. That'll be December 30th. And is there someone who would like to give a vote of thanks to Dustin for his presentation today?
Yeah, just thank you. I really appreciate it. This is my first one. And I really appreciate the discussion, but I also really love the metaphor of seeds. That's something, particularly if I'm working in education, you know, you're constantly just hoping you're planting a seed. You just pray you're planting a seed and doing something. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Marty. Thank you all.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Happy winter solstice, Mele Kalikimaka, and we'll see you just before the new year.